Hello and welcome. We begin with the latest in South Africa. The country is set to witness a shift in its political landscape as counting of ballots in the May 29th election nears conclusion. For the first time in 30 years of democracy in South Africa, political parties are gearing up for coalition talks. Partial results show the African National Congress is set to fall well short of a majority, but is likely to remain the largest party. The Independent Electoral Commission says the counting procedures have been concluded, with only a few voting stations reported to still be counting.
For all intents and purposes, counting procedures have now been concluded, with only a few voting stations reported to still be counting at around 3. It is important to reflect that historically, in the first 24 hours, 80% of the results would have been finalized. However, the process in the 2024 elections has been slowed down by the third ballot, particularly in metropolitan areas.
Now, partial results show the ANC has 42% support, the Democratic Alliance with 23.2%, Jacob Zuma's MK party with 11.5%, and the EFF with 9.5%. I am here at the ICC in Durban, where counting of ballots is underway. We've just given you the latest on what the numbers look like. And now, if these trends hold, it certainly leaves the African National Congress in a dilemma, or rather a trilemma. The ANC is likely to struggle to cobble together a majority through alliances with smaller parties, leaving it with a potential choice between three rivals. Jacob Zuma's MK party is eating into ANC support, particularly here in KZN. This is Zuma's home province and has traditionally been an ANC stronghold. But according to data so far, MK party is running well ahead of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal. Overall, the MK party right now seems to be emerging as the third largest nationally, ahead of the EFF. In the second place is the Democratic Alliance with over 23% votes. Though the DA has vowed to rule out the ANC, its leader, John Steenhuisen, has not ruled out a partnership to block what he has called a doomsday coalition with the ANC, bringing in the EFF or the MK into government. So it will be interesting how these alliances shape up in the coming days. Now, what is certain is that for the first time in 30 years, the ANC will form a coalition government here in South Africa. The 42% vote share for the African National Congress is a massive drop from 57.5% of the votes that it secured in the national election in 2019. It was a little over 62% in 2014 and even higher in the 2009 general election. Now, voters appear to have punished the party of late Nelson Mandela for years of decline in the country. Over the last decade, South African economy has witnessed stagnation, unemployment and poverty rates have been climbing, and infrastructure has been crumbling, leading to regular power cuts. Not just this, the ANC has also been racked by repeated corruption scandals. But the African National Congress is still hopeful. It says coalition is not their plan and that they would wait for the results and deal with the consequences that follow.
We want to win with outright majority. E-coalition is not a plan, it is a consequence. We'll deal with that consequence when it happens. What is important is that you are at just under 1 million. It means that many possibilities will happen there. If we accelerate in the votes that will come in, we may actually breach the 50% mark. If we slow down, we'll drop further. So what is important is that we're over 43% now.
For now, the MK party has ruled out a coalition with Ramaphosa's ANC. Former President Jacob Zuma's daughter said that the party will consider a tie-up with the EFF and black progressive parties.
I think people wanted to see what the ANC could not implement, which is the land issue. free education, and the unemployment rate, which has increased drastically. So I think they saw what President Zuma could do before and trusted they could do it again. So yeah, that's where we are.
But finding partners to form government may not be President Ramaphosa's only concern. If the ANC does form a coalition, does that mean a second term for Ramaphosa? Well, that remains unclear. Now, he is currently under immense pressure over the party's performance and could be forced to resign if the party gets less than 45% of the final vote. Now, the ANC could turn him into a scapegoat. A faction within the party could push for him to be replaced by his deputy, Paul Mashatile. Now, the EFF and the MK are also likely to demand his resignation before agreeing to any coalition. To dive deeper into South Africa's political situation, we have with us Lukhona Mnguni, a political analyst who is joining us live on the broadcast from Durban, South Africa. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Alison, and good evening to your viewers. Good afternoon, actually. We're losing track of time.
Yeah, it has been a very busy few days. Can you take us through just how the vote counting process works here in South Africa?
Well, it's quite a simple one. We have had an additional, change in our electoral system this year because traditionally independent candidates could not run for elections in South Africa since 1994. But there was a litigation taken to the Constitutional Court to say that, the electoral laws are deemed unconstitutional insofar as they don't allow for independent candidates to run. Therefore, what was done was to add an additional ballot paper to accommodate independents who wanted to make it to Parliament. Previously, South Africans voted in general elections with two ballot papers. One was for the Parliament, and the second one was for the province. And then from that, a calculation would be made in terms of allocation of regional seats, which are provincial seats, to Parliament. Because our Parliament, as you might know, has 400 seats, and 200 of those seats are what we call compensatory seats, because we have a pure proportional representation system here. And then the other 200 seats are regional seats, which means according to the population of the different provinces, there's 9 provinces here, then each province is allocated a number of seats according to the population size of that province in proportion to the 200. And therefore, the counting has now been the counting of the 3 ballot papers, because we use physical ballot papers, and therefore there would have been accounting for the provincial ballot papers, which means those ballot papers that influence which parties and independent candidates are represented in a provincial legislature. And then the second one would be a regional ballot paper, which is those parties and independent candidates who would be chosen to represent their region in the National Assembly, in Parliament. And then the last one is the national ballot, which is just only political parties to help for compensation of the regional ballots, which is to effectively say which parties should occupy the remaining 200 seats in the National Assembly, in Parliament. So those are physically counted at the voting stations with oversight that is given by political party agents, election observers at those voting stations. And then results are recorded in your result slips, and everybody signs off on those results that are recorded, and therefore that becomes the result for that particular voting station. In this election, we had just over 23,000 voting stations that needed to accommodate voters from 7 a.m. until 9 p.m. On Wednesday, the 29th of May.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of them stayed open much later. Now, with the vote counting firmly underway, we are seeing some interesting trends emerging. The MK party is a very new party, yet it is faring very well, especially here in KZN. What do you make of this? And did you expect the MK to outperform the EFF?
Definitely, I did expect the MK party to outperform the EFF in KwaZulu-Natal, because when I did research in KwaZulu-Natal in February, I did pick up that MK Party was enjoying support in pockets of traditional ANC bases as far down as the south coast of KwaZulu-Natal. So that told me that MK's reach would definitely hurt the ANC. I didn't think necessarily that they would outperform the EFF on the national ballot because the EFF, had its own base in KwaZulu-Natal and therefore thought it would also be growing. The EFF would be growing in other provinces, as it has demonstrated in Mpumalanga and in some parts of the Northern Cape. But what it has lost in KwaZulu-Natal has not been compensated for by what it has gained in those provinces. But I think the MK Party, while we call it a young party, of course, registered late last year, it shot into public fame when former President Jacob Zuma said in this election he would be supporting MK Party with his vote. At that time, he had not even become the leader of the MK Party. He just said he will vote for MK Party. Then he started campaigning for MK Party. But I think as an organization, it is new. But the MK Party is born out of the ANC infrastructure. So there are a number of people who left their branches, who left their positions as regional secretaries and regional chairpersons to join the MK Party. In that instance, then, the MK Party must be characterized properly, that it is a breakaway of a particular faction within the ANC. And for that reason, whilst it is young as an organization, but its infrastructure is actually quite solid and quite old and comes from within the ANC.
And experienced. Now, Lekona, what options are available to the ANC if the trends continue in this way and they achieve less than the 50% plus one for the first time in our democracy?
It's very difficult at this time to be the ANC because it would probably be a better scenario if they were at 47%, at 48%. But if the trends continue this way and they finish at 41% or 42%, then they really need a sizable coalition partner. They can't just put together a coalition using, smaller parties as their crutch to get over 50%. So insofar as the bigger political parties are concerned, it's really very difficult for the ANC because there are two solidly big political parties. And when I say big political parties, keep in mind that there's a coalition nationally. That is the one we are talking about. But there's going to be a coalition in KwaZulu-Natal, and the numbers there look very, very bad. Then there's going to be a coalition in Gauteng province. And therefore, you need a coalition partner who can probably help you put coalition arrangements in all these three scenarios that I am painting, because they are really serious scenarios. And therefore, the available option to the ANC, I doubt it is the MK Party. I think the wounds are still too fresh there, and the matters are really just too personal for any possibility that MK Party could negotiate with the ANC. I don't think the EFF is now an option for the ANC because the EFF has become very weak in KwaZulu-Natal. Therefore, the ANC only now in KwaZulu-Natal probably can turn to the Democratic Alliance and the IFP, because the ANC and the IFP put together in KwaZulu-Natal still don't outmatch MK Party. Therefore, they need a third political party, and I estimate that might well be the Democratic Alliance. And then if you go to Gauteng, again, the ANC is going to fall below 40% in Gauteng. They need a really serious player to take them over the line. And again, I think the Democratic Alliance, because it will have above 20%, will take them over the line in Gauteng. And then nationally, they can put together a DA, IFP, and ANC coalition. To my mind, this is the only avenue that is available to the ANC. Anything else, I think, will probably be a messy arrangement because it will necessitate different players in different categories.
Absolutely. Lekona, thank you very much for being with us on First Post Africa and for your analysis on the ongoing election counting.
Thank you very much.
Now, earlier today, I spoke to Christopher Maxon, the provincial leader from KwaZulu-Natal province for the Rise Mzansi Party, which is a fairly new political party. Take a look.
I think part of what we stand for is for democracy in its true meaning. The voice of the people, by the people, and for the people, which we honestly believe that As Rise Mzansi, we said 2024 is 1994, and we think it has been accomplished. Must congratulate the IEC for its sterling work. We just hope that the leaders that are going to be elected are truly going to represent the voice of the people. As Rise Mzansi, we stand for ethical leadership, capable leadership, because South Africa, we are where we are not supposed to be, precisely because of not ethical leadership. But I think as a maturing democracy, which has been proven now, the voice of the people needs to matter. Because in 5 years, actually in 2 years, South Africans really need to evaluate how far they've gone when we go for local government election. We're a new party, 1 year old. We really hope that we are going to be a kingmaker. Kingmaker not in the sense of positions, but kingmaker in terms of solutions, because we're a policy-driven and solutions-driven political party. We just hope that everyone really and honestly is as committed as we are, and because South Africans really have expressed themselves.
South Africa's May 29th elections.
It was the start of change in the country.
We are on the verge of history.
I am standing here at the forefront of change, where voices echo the call for action. The nation grapples with an unemployment crisis. As South Africans prepare to cast their votes, the question looms: will the winds of change usher in a new era, or will the legacy of the past maintain its grip on the future?